Now that Joe and Pam are here, I think we can begin. Before we begin, I'm always surprised by things that happen here, by people coming. This evening, I'm really pleased to have some people here. I don't know that they've been here before, at least not in a long time. But most of you don't know Gloria Reardon, who was one of the original members of this congregation. Carolyn, you were one of the originals too, weren't you? Do you remember Gloria? You were just a kid then, I know. Anyhow, Gloria travels with her own chaplain, who happens to be Harris Reardon, the retired UU minister from Boca, right? From Boca. And you brought a neighbor friend. What's your name again? Eileen, it's good to have you with us. I promise if you come again, I won't go through this, unless I forget that I promised I wouldn't. I'll try to remember that. Also, many of you know my wife, Lori, who hasn't been around for a while and doesn't make a habit of church. But anyhow, she told me to tell you she's not responsible for the coordination or lack of coordination in my attire this evening. It wasn't her input or doing. It is what it is. It's Christmas Eve. To kind of begin, if I can begin. Christmas Eve, you use what? Christmas Eve, I think, for anyone who likes it, loves it, is a time of memory, of stories, of song, of traditions. We come together for a brief service that we have called Carols, Candles, and Cookies. There's something about UUs that are attracted by cookies. So there are cookies. I'm thankful to Jackie with help from Shari and others. And you. And I. Okay, well, thank you. I bought them, I didn't make them. But anyhow, it's a time of memory, and my favorite part of the service is always at the end, the dark and the silence, and just letting your mind go back or go forward or go wherever it goes to collect the meanings that have come this night for you. We always begin our service with lighting the chalice because the chalice is a source of light, and it reminds us that UUs are big on light, big on searching, big on sharing findings. We just go on doing that. O come all ye faithful, 253. We're going to start with O come all ye faithful, right? Come hasting to his cradle, leaving their flocks in the fields. Come near. We too with gladness thither bend our footsteps. Oh, come, let us adore him. Oh, come, let us adore him. Oh, come, let us adore him. Christ alone. The third verse. Sing, choirs of angels, sing in exultation. Oh, sing, all ye citizens of heaven above. Glory to God, all glory in the highest. Oh, come, let us adore him. Oh, come, let us adore him. Oh, come, let us adore him. Christ. Okay, please be seated. Now, I had picked out verses 1 and 3, but you just could not let go of thither bend our footsteps in the second verse, which is fine. And we always say here, sing whatever you're used to singing. Did some of you do the Latin? Sure. Show-offs. Good for you. But the point is just to enjoy the singing. So enough said on that. This reading is a famous writing of Howard Thurman. Howard Thurman was a prominent Baptist minister and author. Baptist minister and author. We are a welcoming congregation. But Howard Thurman was a great philosopher and a writer, and he was kind of a mentor to Dr. King. So these words of his at Christmas time remind us of good things to remember. Let's read this out loud together. Howard Thurman's The Work of Christmas. When the song of the angels is stilled, when the star in the sky is gone, when the kings and princes are home, when the shepherds are back with their flocks, the work of Christmas begins, to find the lost, to heal the broken, to feed the hungry, to release the prisoner, to rebuild the nations, to bring peace among the peoples, to make music. May it be so. Now, this next reading I got from Bill Falk, and you probably know it. 'Twas the night before Christmas, Florida style. 'Twas the night before Christmas, and all through the town, no noses were frozen, no snow fluttered down. No children in flannels were tucked into bed. They all wore shorty pajamas instead. To find wreaths of holly was not very hard, for holly wreaths grew in every backyard. In front of the houses were daddies and moms adorning poinsettias and coconut palms. The slumbering kiddies were dreaming with glee that they would find skateboards under the tree. They all knew that Santa was well on his way in a green Ford Mustang instead of a sleigh. He whizzed down the highway and zoomed up the roads in a snappy convertible, peddling his loads. As he jumped from the car, he gave a deep chuckle. He was dressed in Bermudas with an Ivy League buckle. There weren't any chimneys, but that caused no gloom, for Santa came in through the Florida room. He stopped at each house and stayed only a minute as he emptied his bag of the toys that were in it. Before he departed, he treated himself to a glass full of orange juice left on the shelf. He leaped in the car and put it in gear and drove over bridges, singing with cheer. Then we heard him exclaim as he went on his way, Merry Christmas, South Florida. I wish I could stay. That's thanks to Bill Falk. And now the more serious reading is 6:17 from the Gospel of Luke, the short reading that's in the back of the hymnal. I would just read this aloud to us. And it came to pass in those days that there went out a decree from Caesar Augustus that all the world should be taxed. And Joseph also went up from Galilee unto the city of David, which is called Bethlehem, to be taxed with Mary, his espoused wife, being great with child. And so it was that while they were there, the days were accomplished that she should be delivered. And she brought forth her firstborn son, and wrapped him in swaddling clothes, and laid him in a manger, because there was no room for them in the inn. Now, what in a sentence or two does that story mean? Well, it has meant 2,000 years of controversy and architecture, theological architecture. But it does say to us that that child who became quite a life began as we all began. Babies full of promise. And that still goes on happening. Babies are born full of promise. And we hope that the choir that sang over his head, so to speak, or so it was written, we hope that choir of the universe is still ready to sing and able to sing, and will have a song to sing someday. We all need a song of hope and peace someday soon. Now, the Velveteen Rabbit. You did show up. I was wondering if I had to do this without you, it wouldn't have been right or the same. This is that rabbit, and I've told you before that my second-born daughter in 7th grade went on a choir tour, and I gave her money to spend. And she found this in a tour stop, and she recognized it as the rabbit she had heard about on a lot of Christmas Eves. So she brought this rabbit home to me, so I would have the rabbit I'd like to read about. I wonder if I ever gave her money for this, but that's where my money went. The Velveteen Rabbit by Marjorie Williams. I'm just going to cut into the part of this that has always meant the most. Remember, it's a story of magic and animals coming alive and talking and sharing feelings, much like we hope to do in our lifetime. It starts with this rabbit under a tree with other animals and feeling like not the brightest animal under the tree, but you'll get the gist of it. The skin horse, which is kind of a rocking horse, had lived longer in the nursery than any of the others. He was so old that his brown coat was bald in patches and showed the seams underneath, and most of the hairs in his tail had been pulled out to string bead necklaces. He was wise, for he had seen a long succession of mechanical toys arrive to boast and swagger, and by break their mainsprings and pass away, and he knew that they were only toys and would never turn into anything else. For the nursery magic is very strange and wonderful, and only those playthings that are old and wise and experienced, like the skin horse, understand all about it. "What is real?" asked the rabbit one day when they were lying side by side near the nursery fender before Nana came to tidy the room. "What is real? Does it mean having things that buzz inside you and a stick-out handle?" "Real isn't how you are made," said the skin horse. "It's the thing that happens to you when a child loves you for a long, long time, not just to play with, but really loves you. Then you become real." "Does it hurt?" asked the rabbit. "Sometimes," said the skin horse, for he was always truthful. "When you are real, you don't mind being hurt." "Does it happen all at once, like being wound up?" he asked, "or bit by bit?" "It doesn't happen all at once," said the skin horse. "You become. It takes a long time. That's why it doesn't often happen to people who break easily, or have sharp edges, or who have to be carefully kept. Generally, by the time you are real, most of your hair has been loved off, and your eyes drop out, and you get loose in the joints and very shabby. But these things don't matter at all, because once you are real, you can't be ugly, except to people who don't understand." "I suppose you were real," said the rabbit, but then he wished he hadn't said it, for he thought the skin horse might be sensitive. But the skin horse only smiled. "The boy's uncle made me real," he said. "That was a great many years ago. But once you are real, you can't become unreal again. It lasts for always." The rabbit sighed. He thought it would be a long time before this magic called real happened to him. He longed to become real, to know what it felt like. And yet the idea of growing shabby and losing his eyes and whiskers was rather sad. He wished that he could become it without these uncomfortable things happening to him. What is the meaning of all that? A children's story. You know, it ends with the rabbit coming to life and hopping into the woods. So it kind of starts with a Christmas story and ends with a resurrection story, a rabbit. Most of us can relate to becoming older, and I don't know many people who say yes, and wiser too, but that's supposed to be a package. But becoming real is something I think we all can relate to and want to. What does it mean? Does anybody have another word they would use? Honest, humble, live and let live. That's one word. Becoming real means not being phony, not being fake, accepting people as they are, but not the world as it is. What does it mean? Becoming real didn't seem to come to mind early on, even when I heard the story for the first time. But as the years advance, it seems like that's a goal we have in life. While we have it, we want to be real. We want it to be worth our time, and we want it to be good for people around us. If you have other thoughts on that, I would invite emails or words after. The Velveteen Rabbit. Now, Tia Breeding and I can't decide who likes that story more. So if I ever forget to read it on Christmas Eve, I'll have to answer to the board chair. Now, Silent Night, 3 verses. I'm going to dim the room a little bit. You probably know these verses anyway, but I think the darkness adds to. And then we'll hold it in quiet for another verse, and then we'll get to Joy to the World after Silent Night. 251. Can all of you see enough? Do you want to remain seated? Why don't you remain seated? That way you hold your candle, I think, more carefully. And now Joy to the World, 245, 3 verses. My deepest thanks to Jay, who was called to service for this service, because I had no one, and he offered, and I am really grateful, Jay. Jay is fairly new to us, but he has learned you don't stay new very long. And also to Karina for coming in so we could broadcast the service. One person in Guilford, Connecticut asked for this, and so I trust she'll let me know she got it. They were all singing to you, Deb. Yes. Now go in peace. Cookies await, and extinguish carefully.